tend to only ever ask about eating meat, but if you think of the broader issue, really
Venerable, I'm going to mute everybody real quick.
That's right. We tend to only ask about meat, I think, eating, because we're very attached to eating, I think. We don't ask, but the bigger question, the more valid question, is what is the karma we create by using the body of animals, isn't it, for our benefit? And that includes using silk, that includes using medicines, that includes wearing leather, that includes eating meat. But I think it's interesting that we always only ask about eating, because I think we're very attached to eating. So I think we get very, that seems to be the one that looms large for us. And indeed on the planet, it's a pretty big one, because let's face it, these days, more than anything these days, the added extra issue about eating meat is the meat industry is destroying the planet, apparently, you know, and it's like very clear. One of the major things. So it's a bigger issue than merely the killing. So, I mean, you know, okay, so the bigger issue, what is the karma we create when we use animals' bodies, obviously of animals who were alive, who are now dead, for our own benefit? Well, straight away, so if we look right at the very simple fundamentals of when you create karma, remember, like we said, you know, a complete action, and a complete action means an action that would then cause you to get a type of rebirth. So a complete action of killing would be an action that leaves lots of seeds in your bank vault that would multiply and bring many results of many lower realm rebirths. But clearly we don't, every action we do isn't a complete one. So, you know, obviously, if literally, if you go to your grandma's and she offers you a lamb chop, or if you have a piece of silk, you know, in a shirt that you buy, we know, if we think about it, those silkworms died an agonizing death. They were boiled alive in the pot so they could get the silk without tearing, because the silk, you know, otherwise the silkworm would climb out of the silk, its little cocoon, and would break the silk. So we can see that we have many things that we use for our pleasure that have depended upon the death of animals. It's very clear. But it's not only, this is the point that it's very hard for, you know, very serious vegans and vegetarians to hear. I mean, I'm talking about the fanatics now, and I mean that quite seriously, those who are running around telling everybody else what to do. I mean, there's millions of things we do. If we think about the bigger picture, okay, we think about the bigger picture, you're just breathing, we're killing sentient beings. The Buddhist view would say there's billions and trillions of sentient beings pervading the universe. The air we breathe, our bodies are walking zoo. Everything we do, we're slaughtering creatures. You drive a car, you're slaughtering creatures. You breathe, you walk, you talk, we're slaughtering creatures. There's no doubt about that. So we've taken the big picture point of view, that is a very different perspective. But because eating meat's a big one, and because we can get very fanatic about eating, we're attached to eating. I'm just my commentary here. Then sometimes we get a bit obsessed about the eating side, as if so that's why for me, sometimes I remember on Facebook, I always tell this story. I had a picture of me one time in Liverpool, in England. I had a picture of me in the cheese shop buying this kick-ass cheddar. So some, you know, the fundamentalist vegans got very upset with me. How dare a Buddhist nun eat cheese and show bad example, that kind of thing. I remember I didn't want to be political, you know. So I remember I'd always wondered about how many creatures die on the road when you drive a car. So I meant the bugs, you know. So of course someone's done the research, and it's something like trillions. I mean, I remember one fellow, some Dutch fellow, did the research about just the number of creatures slaughtered on the number plate. Just a number plate of a car per kilometer per car. It was like trillions of creatures. So we don't eat their bodies. We don't eat bugs unless we're going to start eating bugs. They're recommending we start eating bugs now. We don't eat them, so we tend not to think that matters. I remember even more direct. I remember, you know, in wheat fields, and one particular Australian scientist was pointing out in a particular wheat field, and this would be every wheat field you can think of, variations of the same story. A wheat field which grows wheat, and what's the wheat for? Well, 20% for the bulls, for the meat eaters, and probably 80% for the vegans and the vegetarians, possibly. Before, in the off season, when there's no wheat being grown, millions and millions of cute little field mice gather there. And he had pictures of them. He said they sing love songs to each other. And of course, when you have to grow the wheat, what do? Unceremoniously, and probably not kindly, you slaughter the millions of mice. But I mean, even this fellow on Facebook, he refused to accept that that's the same thing. He said, oh, that's just different. You can't help it. That's clearly absurdity. That's clearly insanity to think that. Or it doesn't matter if millions of mice get slaughtered for your holy wheat, but it matters if they get slaughtered for food. There's no difference. I mean, it's just, there's always difference. Everything's different. But the broader picture is animals get harmed brutally for humans in every imaginable way. This is very clear. So given that just by existing, we harm sentient beings, the very best we can do, this is where the whole business of vows come in. You can't stop, but if you're going to exist, you can't stop breathing unless you die. You can't stop, you have to, the world is where we walk and we fly and we drive in cars. So just the collateral is that beings die. So you can't, if you have to really ground to a halt and stop, you become fundamentalist. You've got to continue to live within this nightmarish world. And this is part of the suffering of the world, that we harm each other, is at least we can start. This is why entry-level junior school grade 1, at least start by intentionally not wanting to harm sentient beings, not wanting in your mind. You've got to start with your mind. You can't stop by walking, but you can stop by not wanting to harm. So the very first level of practice in Buddhism is at least stop intentionally killing, intentionally lying, intentionally stealing. This is a very major step forward. You're still going to be impacting upon the life of sentient beings, but at least you can start by purifying your own mind. All we can do is begin to get ourselves out of this mess, And then as much as we can in our daily lives, with consciousness, with awareness, and gradually with more compassion, we will attempt to stop doing actions that we can stop doing, that we know would have an impact on the lives of animals. And that might include not eating meat, but still you don't get away with it. I'm sorry, creatures die for your holy vegan food. You can't argue with that. So we do the best we can. We do the best we can. We do the best we can. So it's not a, do you understand? It's a much more nuanced way of seeing it, that we do the best we can. So certainly, I mean, I know, it is recommended to be there's two things going on. One is the harm we do to others. And the other one is the karma we create. And this is a crucial thing. They're very separate. That's why even doing a negative action of killing a mouse, but you really meant well with compassion, even though you're foolish, and the poor mouse even took a suffering rebirth, still the karma you create isn't too bad because you meant well. Killing your grandmother with compassion, you don't create much negative karma. Your poor grandma might go to the lower realms. That's pretty horrible. But there's different ways of seeing. So the best is to have the wisdom to know what to do that'll harm less, and then to do it. That's really wise. And we can only go to that direction as we get more advanced, But there's so many ways of seeing the story. The other thing about meat eating is this, one other interesting factor to bring in, which we don't think about in our materialist view of things, which we always think about as supply and demand. So we think if there's less supply, if there's less demand, there'll be less supply. Well, there might be, but we're not factoring in other things. We're not factoring in the karma of sentient beings to be born as animals, or fish. So I always remember one story in Maine years ago. I remember suddenly the fishermen of Maine, whose specialty is lobsters, they suddenly got 10 times more lobsters in the water of Maine. So initially, of course, in the water of Maine. So obviously, initially, the fishermen were really excited because they saw they're getting more money. But suddenly, there's a glut, and suddenly there's a glut of lobsters, and the price collapses. So the poor Maine state government had to spend millions of dollars on marketing these wretched lobsters to try and get rid of them. So, but the point is this: nobody ordered more lobsters. The sentient beings who had the karma to be born lobsters suddenly, for whatever reason, got born all together at once in Maine and collapsed the fisherman market. So there's a whole bunch of different things there, but no one ordered those lobsters, So it's the karma of sentient beings to be born as the animals. Clearly, there's one factor. You don't factor that in. And the other one is, let's say, we stop eating bulls and so meat, and so the cows will suddenly decrease, but the sentient beings who've got the karma to be born as animals will go get born fish or go get born chickens, So that part, that's the bigger picture part. But from the point of view, so again, the other aspect is compassion. It's very clear. I mean, if we looked at how silkworms die, that's pretty monstrous. They get boiled alive, They're in their little kind of cocoon. And when they get bigger, apparently, they break through their cocoon, so that'll mess up the silk. So we boil them alive so they die, so we can get their silk. That's not cool. That's it, silk, Leather. I mean, look at leather. Belts. I mean, so many medicines. I mean, look at the harm that we do to animals, creatures, hideous harm, using them as experiment, like as guinea pigs from monstrous things so we humans can have better medicine. I mean, it's pretty hideous, out of our ignorance, because we don't respect animals. And that comes from our Christian teaching with great respect, because animals, as far as we're concerned, God made them all for our benefit. You know, that's the Christian teaching in general. So there's many things to look at, you know. So the very best we can do, all we can do, each one of us. And the other thing is too, depending on the different persons, you create different karma, you know. There's different things, there's different environments, different times, different situations. So to be fanatic about, I will not touch a piece of meat and I won't even eat an OXO cube or whatever we have, those gravy cubes, those cubes. I mean, sometimes you can be fanatic about things. I mean, I remember one Lama, he was invited to a person's for lunch with his attendant, with his Western translator, and the person offered meat. And the translator said, "Oh no, I don't eat meat." And the Lama said to his attendant, "You eat that food." So, you know, out of kindness, you go to your grandmother's house and she's bought you a lamb chop and she doesn't know you're a vegetarian. Who do you think you are, being so arrogant to your grandmother? Kindly eat the lamb chop and be done with it. I mean, we can get a bit fanatic, I think. There's more involved than I'm not going to eat a piece of meat like it's some kind of negative thing. It's just a piece of flesh, it's dead, you know. You're not creating any harm to anybody. You're helping your grandma. You're thank you to your grandma for being kind. There's many things to think about, you know, in other words.
Hey, Venerable. So, Adam, again.
Yes, Adam, yeah.
So less a question and more just kind of a comment on this. And I think I'd heard this once from Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo talking about the eating of meat. And one of the things that she mentioned that I thought was kind of an interesting point was particularly with the meat industry, right? So you have like these massive cattle farms.
That's right.
And undoubtedly, I mean, these cows know what's happening to them all.
That's
and
right.
So when they're slaughtered and died and packaged,
that's right. Yeah.
Fear and anxiety that are within them actually pollutes the meat. So when you consume it, you're actually consuming that fear and anxiety as well.
I know, but I don't care about that. I'm not interested. That's her view. I don't care about that. We're talking about compassion here. I mean, that's just self-centeredness. I don't care. That's like, you know, that's the view we have. I'm criticizing her. She's a wonderful human being, very special. What I'm meaning is, you know, the view, mostly the view that motivates most vegetarians is not compassion for animals. It could be, but often it's just good health. And that would be that view, you know. That's why people want to eat nice, pure meat. Well, finally, whether it's pure meat or polluted meat, the bloody poor creatures got killed. So it's even more, it's almost like, you know, you think it's wonderful that you bring up a cow in a nice environment and feed it beautifully. And the only reason that you feed it beautifully so we can get nice, healthy meat, that's really sinister. So either way, it's still the motivation when it comes down to the killing part. And the reason you kill, we're talking about that. Of course, that could be true, but, you know, I understand, but that's not an issue for me. That's not what I'm saying, but that's interesting. Many people have different views. It's very true. It's true. So the bottom line for each one of us is what's in your mind, your motivation, and then do the best you can to not harm sentient beings. What's in your mind, and do whatever you do with the purest motivation in order to not harm sentient beings. The best we can do is that. The best we can do is that. Because every second we do anything, we create karma. So you could even argue, on the other hand, again, you see, looking at the variations, there can be one person who never touches eating meat, who never eats meat, who doesn't kill, doesn't lie, doesn't steal, and then suddenly they're very sick and they might have to eat meat. How can you say that's negative, you know? You can't possibly say that. Another person, maybe he's a fisherman, but I remember hearing about a fellow I know, who has a big company that he now is retired, but he gets millions of dollars from it, from fishermen. He's a fisherman. The company is killing millions and millions and millions of fish, but he's a vegetarian. Well, that's kind of weird, isn't it? All his money comes from the death of countless millions of fish, but he's a vegetarian. So we can get very confused about these things. The two things is the harm we do to others, and the other one is the karma we create.
And I don't want to get into an argument about how healthy veganism is compared to meat eating, but from my
discussion, we're not discussing. That's not to do with good karma or bad karma. That's just self-centeredness.
But I'm
talking about harming sentient beings. The main issue. Hang on a second. I understand. Let me just finish. The main issue here is about harming sentient beings and not harming sentient beings. Number one, and number two, the main thing is to keep our mind virtuous. Good health and not health. That's another discussion. That's another discussion. But that's not to do with virtue. That's not to do with being virtuous. We eat healthily because of attachment. We're trying to say here, try and have the purest motivation for not killing and try not to kill as well. That's best. But to be a vegetarian just because you're going to eat better, that's just attachment. That's just attachment.
What I mean is, if you have come to the conclusion based on scientific literature that eating meat is necessary in order to achieve optimum health, shall we say, could you say then that, well, you're eating the meat mindfully so that you are stronger, so that you can be more compassionate to other people? Or is that...
You could argue that. You could argue that. But I don't care about scientific. The bottom line is No, sure, but in the end, the reason we're healthy is from past killing, from past not killing. If you're healthy now, that's the environmental result of past non-killing. So really, it's best to continue not to kill and not to be involved in killing. That's the best. That's the very best. But that means you can't even eat your vegetarian rice because creatures were slaughtered there. So we've got to be aware, is what I'm trying to say. Not feel so holy because we don't eat meat. That's what more the point I'm saying here. It's way more subtle than that and more nuanced. We have to do the best we can to not harm sentient beings, or to do actions that we know where sentient beings have been harmed, knowing that no matter what we do, sentient beings are being harmed. So that each of us in our own way, according to our own karma, according to our own situation, do the best we can. That's all I'm trying to say. And be authentic and be compassionate and try to cultivate compassion.
That makes sense. Thank you.
I understand, that's the bigger picture, but yes, thanks.
Venerable?
Okay. Yes, Donna.
Hi. I correct me if I'm wrong or if I heard it wrong, but well, many Tibetan lamas, people from India and from Tibet, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama, at least he used to eat meat. He spoke once.
What's the question about that, though?
Okay, yeah. So he spoke once about a particular blessing he did before eating. Especially, they're the normal prayers for before eating, but if it involved eating an animal, he contemplated the life of the animal.
Who is this? Who are you talking about?
His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Okay, good. All right, wonderful. Okay.
Oh, okay. I thought you knew more. I couldn't remember.
I mean, I have nothing to say about that. Whatever you heard, I'm sure lots of wonderful things people have said. I can tell you what I understand. That's all.
Okay. Can you tell me what you understand?
I've told you already.
Oh, okay.
What I've just said is what I wanted to say about karma.
Okay.
And how you approach it and look at it and also that's the one. Because everything, I mean, it's only this because it's such a big issue for people's minds. Yeah. And this is why we only ever ask about eating meat. It's not about, I mean, and I was trying to make the bigger picture show that whatever we do, we're going to harm sentient beings. And so to be conscious, to be as much as possible, to not, the whole bottom line in being a Buddhist is entry level junior school, grade 1, try to stop doing actions that harm sentient beings. Do the best we can, at least to have no intention to kill, no intention to lie, no intention to steal. Do the best we can. And as we progress, we try to give up attachment, we try to give up harming, we try to develop compassion. That's the point. Within this big, scenario of this crazy universe where we harm so many sentient beings. That's the beginning.
Thank you.
Venerable Robina?
Yes.
This is Brian in Los Angeles. I'm sorry I'm having problems with my video.
I
have a question that I've been wanting to ask you the last 2 months watching your live stream teachings. And I understand the concept of karma. However, as someone that's very interested in history, how would you explain the terrible genocides as in Armenia or the Holocaust or Rwanda? And I cannot get it into my noggin, as you say, how we can have compassion for the perpetrators and how the millions of people that were slaughtered, it was like their karmic seed. It's very difficult for me.
I understand, Don. I understand. Okay, so back to the fundamental principles first. And I've said it many times, and I'll say it again, and then I'll do some commentary directly to your question, Brian. So again, back to the fundamental principle. There are trillions of sentient beings. Okay, trillions. And they're all beginningless and all endless. So these points are weird for us, Brian, because we don't think this way. So I've got to fit this into the big picture in order to answer the question. If we take this view as our working hypothesis, which of course is our decision. So that all Buddha's view is that minds are beginningless and minds are endless. So we can see these minds, these sentient beings we talk about, they manifest as beings. There are ants and there are dogs and there are humans and we can see that in the planet right now on this planet. And then if we want to divide up on this planet, there are some sentient beings who get harmed and there are some sentient beings who do the harming. You just pointed that out. There are groups of people who've been slaughtered. There are groups of people who do the slaughtering. Absolutely. There's no question. We can see that. Animals harm each other. Humans harm each other. Now, if all of those creatures and all of those humans have had countless past lives, number 1 point. Number 2 point, if everything those humans and animals that have done and said and thought in the past has programmed their mind, that creates the cause for those beings to be born as an Armenian, to be born as a Tibetan, to be born as a Chinese person, to be born as a baby, to be born as an ant, to be born as a dog, We can see that. There are countless Armenians and humans and Germans and dogs on the planet. Now, some of those Armenians and dogs and Tibetans are in a group that get harmed in this life. Another group in another life will be the ones who do the harming. Well, guess what, Brian? We go from life after life after life, joining into different groups because we've all got group karma. And one time we're a member of the harming group and another time we're a member of the victim group. That's it. In the broadest, most broad possible way is the way to answer the question. So the view we have to take as a given here is that consciousness is beginningless and that everything we think and do and say creates suffering. So if you can look into this life right now and see some people harming others, guess what? That group will be the ones who get harmed in next life. Speaking really simplistically, but using the logic of whatever we do produces results like that. Either you have it done to you or you do it to others. That's the 4 ways that karma ripens. One way karma ripens is a tendency to keep killing. One way karma ripens is to get killed. And if you're in the group in this life that's got killed by somebody, it's because you've done the killing in the past. In this life, if someone is kind to you, Brian, if you're in a group, and this is now exactly the same logic, we're in a group of people who maybe are fortunate, where we've got a bed to sleep in, we are poor, we're not being killed, we're not being raped, we're not being murdered. We're in a particular group, that's the fruit of our virtue in the past. Groups of people as a group do good things to help other people. So we just keep going, life after life, individually and collectively experiencing the fruits and doing the actions of what we've done before. That's the broadest possible way to answer it. The only way to understand how come a group of innocent people now called Tibetans can be slaughtered by Chinese communists, the only way to comprehend it is in this view. Without this view, it makes no sense. I agree with you.
Thank you.
Do you understand, Brian?
Yes, thank you.
But the other point is, we have to, if we keep remembering all the good things as well, but we only tend to wonder why the bad things happen. But how come there's a group of people right now who are happy and content and fulfilled, or live in a country where we're treated nicely and the weather is beautiful and the food is delicious and no one harms us? It's exactly the same answer. It's not just good luck and bad luck. We are experiencing the results of our past virtue. I mean, this is why the Tibetans, I always tell that story about the 2 young Tibetan nuns invited by Richard Gere back in 2003 when I was working for our prison project. And I remember he invited Dalai Lama was coming to New York. He invited him to New York. And he also invited 20 former prisoners, all of whom had done some kind of, been in prison and done some kind of meditation in prison. It was a very moving group of people, black, white, Puerto Rican, male, female, a whole cross-section of Americans, and a few people like me who worked with people in prison. And he also invited 2 young Tibetan nuns. So they all met His Holiness. It was a very wonderful day. But these young women, Tibetan nuns, they wouldn't hurt a fly. They've got the view of karma. They don't kill, they don't steal, they don't lie. And there they are. They were tortured, in prison, tortured and sexually abused for a couple of years, So they were telling their story. And what was shocking, of course, to the Americans, is you could have argued, if you'd like, that their suffering was probably worse than everybody else's. But secondly, the part that was really shocking to Americans, which means us humans who have the materialist view, who think our mother made us, who don't talk about past lives, who don't have the view of karma, so it's a shocking idea to us. These young women weren't angry because they have the view of karma. They're brought up with this. It's in the bones of their being, just like for us, in the bones of our being is the materialist view that you began in your mother's womb, and and there's no reason why people should harm or help us for that matter. That's our view. It's all good luck and bad luck. But these young women having the view of karma embedded in their minds since they're tiny, it's just a view in their culture for 1,200 years. They have an answer to why things are happening. They know good things happen because of their virtue, and they know bad things happen because they've done harm in a past life. It could be 1,000 lifetimes ago. So they don't have that agonizing, why is this happening to me, which is the basis for most of our suffering, because we agonize why we don't have an answer. They happen to have the view of karma, which then means they don't go crazy. So they came out of that experience more happy and more fulfilled with much suffering, but they also with more compassion, because one of them said at the end, there were tears, and she said, and of course, we had compassion for our torturers because we knew we must have harmed them in the past. And this is the real point, because we know they will suffer in the future. In other words, the victims of this life are the oppressors of the past. And the oppressors of this life have been the victims in the past, but haven't sorted it out. And so go right back and continue to harm. And that's how we perpetuate samsara. Initially, it's a heavy view because because it seems like, because we're so used to believing in innocent victims and naughty oppressors, and we want to hate the oppressors and love the innocent victims. But if we have the bigger picture of karma, it kind of broadens it all out, and it's a very shocking view initially. But this is the fundamental picture in Buddhism, that we're beginnings and endless, and we've done trillions of actions, we've had trillions of lifetimes, we've been in all kinds of groups and individuals, we've had every imaginable experience, and this is why the whole understanding of karma at the very first level of practice, we're sick of this roundabout, we're sick of this ridiculous nonsense, we're fed up with all this suffering, and I'm going to start to change. So I'm going to stop killing and stop stealing and stop lying and stop harming. That's kind of the basis, you know. Brian, is that useful?
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Don. Of course, it's a tough one. It's massive. It's not easy for us I mean, this, and you know, because we can't see, we're not clairvoyant. So it really takes a lot of thinking and clarity to decide you want to live according to this view without fear and neurosis, but just decide. I mean, that's up to us. Whatever philosophy we have on this planet, it's our decision. Whether we have the materialist philosophy, the Christian one, or the Chinese, or whatever you want, a communist one, it's our job, it's our decision. We need to look into the meaning of life and then learn to have a basis. And you know, here we're talking about a basis of learning to practice morality, learn to practice ethics. If you don't want to have suffering, stop causing it, you know. And so it demands that we take responsibility, and it demands an ownership of it, which means that's why those young Tibetan women, you can see that with anybody who really does live according to the view of karma. I mean, look at the Dalai Lama, you couldn't wish for a better example. It's the view that you've created the suffering yourself as well as the happiness. And that's why I think if we look at His Holiness, people adore him, you know, they see this wonderful, happy fellow. I mean, they know his history, 50, 60 years of unbelievable suffering of his people. So we should ask the question, well, I wonder why he's such a happy guy. If so much torture and suffering has happened in his own world, why is he happy? And we really should look at it. Well, the karma is the fundamental starting point. That's the view. No one made you. You're not the handiwork of a God or a creator or random parents. You're not physical. So it's a very powerfully different view, and it fits as coherent if we take this view and attempt to live according to it. It can really bring quite profound changes. And as I said before, one of the key concept, you know, experiential implications of karma is that we become responsible. Suffering is painful, there's no question, but the whole point is we own it. Like if you've got diabetes and you keep blaming the sugar company and want to sue the sugar company, I mean, that's fine, it'll help you get some money, but it won't help you change your habits. We've got to own the fact that I've been eating the sugar and I can grow up and I can start to change. I can start to change. Taking responsibility is a very powerful view, and that's why those young women weren't angry. Dalai Lama used to say that most Tibetans didn't have anger. It saddens him now that more and more have anger, because anger is the philosophical response to when bad things happen. How dare it happen to me? I'm an innocent victim. It sounds kind of heavy, but it's kind of interesting to look into it, you know?
Can you speak about group karma?
Well, that's it. That's the one. We do things in groups, don't we? I mean, we do things in groups. We're very group-oriented people. We have families. We're part of a certain gender. We're part of a certain religion. We're part of a certain country. We do things in groups. We buy into things in groups. So we will experience as groups. You know, the Tibetans, you know, I mean, the karma they created as a group of people could be 1,000 lifetimes ago to harm a group of people called Chinese, who are now in turn harming them. And it wouldn't have been as Chinese and Tibetans. It could have been as a bunch of animals, you know. We're now experiencing the results karmically as a group. It's very long term. I mean, we do things as groups, you know. Do you understand? So we'll experience the results as groups.
I understand. I'm wondering more about, I understand on an individual level how the seeds that you have planted in past lives are reflected in your current life and will be reflected in your future life. But in terms of group karma, are you, like when you select your mother and father, are you looking for people who have similar kinds of karma that form a group? And I guess I'm thinking more about how we
get into different groups, you mean? How we get born into different... Oh, absolutely. No, okay, that's a really good point. If you analyze a group of people or a group of animals, go beyond the label Australian, go beyond the label white, go beyond the label black, go beyond the label dog, and we're going to look into and we're going to see a series of conditions, external conditions that might be fortunate or not, and we're going to see a certain type of mind. So if you have a group of people called lions, they've got similar looking bodies, they've done similar actions in the past. And when they die, the particular karma, for example, would be killing karma that ripened as the main, was triggered as the main cause to go to an animal mummy, a lion mummy, as opposed to a human mummy. So clearly they're not looking for that kind of environment that would suit their tendencies, but their tendencies and their past actions drive them spontaneously to that environment. If you've got a fascist tendencies, you're going to find a fascist mother, I promise you. Because you get born to that condition that suits your mind. You get born into a group. Let's say you lots of stealing karma. You're going to get born into a group of poor people. You get born in a country where poverty is rampant. You know, you don't have to choose it. Your actions will drive you to that group. If you've got very strong morale, goodness karma and patience karma, you'll get born in a group of people, maybe they've got similar, not always the same, but similar tendencies. So our actions determine those groups. A group is just a bunch of people with a certain kind of tendencies that have done certain kind of actions. You understand?
Yes, thank you.
Good.
So Venerable, would the right action be if Steve were to punch me on the nose to let him do that, knowing that that's my negative karma ripening? Or should I not let him do that because that would create more negative karma for him in the future?
So what was your alternative to accepting it? What was the alternative?
To not let him punch me because that would create negative karma for him.
I understand. Okay. So the normal scenario, if you and I are friends and we're ordinary samsaric people and we've got attachment and we've got anger and we've got jealousy, if you punch me, I'm going to get upset and I'll blame you. And if I'm really angry, I'll probably punch you back. Look at the world, isn't it? So that just perpetuates the whole drama. So when we start,
Se me ha dicho que a las 2:30, pero.
¿A las ya?
Sí.
So when we start practicing, we don't have the luxury I don't have the luxury to prevent you from harming me because I don't want you to create karma. I've just got to start controlling my own body and my own speech. And this is already pretty intense. This is the first level of practice. At least this second, stop killing, stop stealing, stop shouting, stop yelling, stop abusing. That's my main practice. So that level of practice is like playing safe. There's no discussion about trying to be helpful to you yet. That's too advanced. I've just got to protect myself from continuing to create more negative karma. And that's already pretty powerful level of practice. But that is the one we often find difficult. It's really intense. You understand what I'm saying, Susie? That's the very first level. At least I try not to answer back. Look how hard that is. Oh my God, we all know it's why we fight, So then that's the first one. If I can control my body and my speech, then I get to the next level of practice and I even try to start working on the anger itself. That's even more powerful, where I become my own therapist. This is the wisdom wing work. This is the nuts and bolts of the ground level of Buddhist practice. Now I get to the level of also practicing compassion. And if maybe I've got you've got some control over your body, speech, and mind, and you see that I'm a very angry person, you will do everything you can to prevent me from harming myself. It'll be for my sake. That's pretty high. That's pretty advanced. You get my point? So it's all a question where we're at. So start protecting yourself first and don't do it back, and then control your mind. And then we can begin to have compassion. You understand? And you can even have tough love. Like, you might be my mum. You might know more. You go to your room and you really mean it out of compassion. It's for my sake. That's pretty high. That's pretty amazing if we can.
Thank you.
Understand? Yeah. What else, people?
Robina?
Yes, Sasha. Yes,
if somebody tries to steal from you,
yes,
and gets a lawyer to do that, and if you get a lawyer to stand up to them and say, no, you can't do that, is that creating bad karma or is that correct action?
Well, we all have to look into that and look at the motivation. The motivation is the main thing, isn't it, Sasha? The motivation. In those situations, just because it says don't steal or don't get angry. I mean, that also doesn't mean, like in Susie's question, doesn't mean I sit there blankly and let Susie punch me. I mean, do my best I can to try and maybe get out of Susie's way, or do what I can to protect myself from being stolen from. So when it comes to that kind of thing, you've got to really look at your motivation. You've got to have the purest motivation for doing it. You've got to know, first of all, that they're stealing from you because you stole from them in the past. So don't be all innocent victim about it if we've got the view of karma. And if you do decide to get a lawyer to fight the case, then you've got to do it with compassion, because you're going to ruin yourself otherwise. You'll pollute yourself otherwise. It's not trying to be holy, it's just trying to be practical. If you're going to do that, and that, you know, litigation can get very heavy, and it usually tends up being incredible anger, then that's no benefit to you. Even if you get your money, you just harmed yourself. So it's got to be from the right motivation. It's absolutely vital to be the right motivation, which is compassion.
Yeah, well, I used to let people steal from me because I thought they needed whatever it was more than I did. And if it made them happy, fine, let them have it.
That's fine too. If that's okay, if you choose to do that, fine. Nothing wrong with that.
Finally, with one person, after them doing it about 4 times, finally, when they got a lawyer and tried to steal more, I stood up, you know.
How come people steal from you?
And I wasn't angry.
Sasha, how come people keep stealing from you? What's going on in your life? What are you talking about?
I guess I was trained to be a victim, or maybe it's my karma.
No, obviously not maybe. It is your karma. If people keep stealing from you, honey, you better start purifying it. Do you purify it? Do you do the 4 opponent powers? If you don't, then it's going to keep happening.
The 4 what?
You better start regretting your past stealing, so that because you're sick of suffering, and then have compassion, and then vow not to do it again. Then it might start changing, baby. Come on.
For what powers?
Honey, child, that's the purification practice we're just sitting in this course for. I'm about to talk about it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. The 4 opponent powers, it's called. So let's talk about it now. Okay. All right. So everything we think and do and say leaves seeds in the mind. Then, as Lama Yeshe says, we create negativity with the mind. So guess what? We can purify it by creating positivity with the mind. What a wonderful insight. So let's look. So, you know, this is all in your course notes, by the way. It's all there. So there's this wonderful practice, and as Lama Zopa says, we're insane not to do this every day. We are insane not to do this every day. So the analogy using the plants one is a really simple one. The very first level of practice, when you start to learn botany, and you realize you've got to, the first level is you've got to stop this second from sowing more poison seeds in your garden. So you're only going to know they're poison by learning botany. So here, you know, Buddha's botany says we've got to stop creating the cause for future suffering. So if you don't want to be lied to, stolen from, raped, abused, harmed, and you know you don't, then guess what? You have to locate the cause of that. And the Buddha says, guess what, honey? The cause of those things happening to you is because you've done them to others. This is the fundamental, simple principle of karma. It's not rocket science. Hard of us to think of it, of course, but this is the logic. So if you don't want future suffering, and you know you don't, because you know you don't want the present suffering, so you stop causing it. So right this second, the first level of practice, immediate, as Lama Zopa says, is you stop, at least stop doing the heaviest of the actions that harm others. Stop killing, stop stealing, stop jumping on the wrong partner. In other words, actions using your body that harm sentient beings based on anger or attachment. Just three baby things he would recommend. Then stop the 4 actions using your speech to harm others. And this, of course, is humans, especially humans. You know, don't stop telling untruths, stop lying, stop harsh speech, abusing others, stop rabbiting on about nothing, useless rubbish, just blah, blah, you know, and stop saying bad things about people behind their backs. That's our favorite. So 7 baby actions. He then, the last 3 of these 10 non-virtues that Buddha talks about, that is recommendation, as just a little fundamental series of recommendations of things to refrain from. The heaviest of the negative actions of body, speech, and mind. And the third lot are at least to begin controlling the heaviest level of the 3 toxic emotions, the three poisons. At least refrain from the heaviest level of attachment, which is that really intense grasping, that painful, always wanting something more, that manifests as being an alcoholic or a junkie or jumping on 17 people sexually every day or whatever it might be. Begin to harness the energy of intense craving. Try and attempt to harness the energy of intense anger, which is like wanting others to suffer. We get angry, but then to add that to it, this wish that they suffer and not give that up, that's intense level of anger. Try and harness that one, and try and control at least the heaviest level of ignorance, which is like this fundamentalism of I'm right and you're wrong, and which is like the fundamentalist political positions, you know, at least control that. So these are the 10 non-virtues that Buddha would suggest we attempt to lose as a basis for living our life, at least the first level, refrain from these at least. Why? Because these are the heaviest of the negative actions of body, speech, and mind, each of which will bring extremely suffering experiences in the future for ourselves. So the basis of this practice is to refrain from these, not because Buddha says so, not because you'll get punished, because they will cause you future suffering. Not even for compassion yet. We've got to have compassion for ourselves first. That's the very first level of practice. Then as you progress in your practice and you start to enjoy the Buddha's teachings and you like the Buddha's teachings, and at some point you then might decide you want to formalize your Buddhist commitment and take refuge in the Buddha, and then you would take a set of vows that extracted from those 10. And vows are super, 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 super powerful. Buddha loves his vows. Let's discuss vows first, and then we'll discuss the purification. But just before we get into the vows, the first level of practice is at least refrain from sowing more poison seeds, at least refrain from doing actions that will ripen in the future in your suffering. Why? Because you're sick of suffering. Then the next, we're going to talk about vows. That's a more, it kind of, you know, it drills in more deeply into this practice by taking refuge and living in vows. We'll do this in a second. But then the next level of practice, as Lama Zopa says, is we've got to take care of all the seeds we've already planted in the past, but that haven't yet ripened as suffering. And given that our minds go back and back to beginningless time, we must have billions of negative karmic seeds sitting in our bank vault, waiting for the conditions to manifest as our suffering. Clearly, we've got to get ahead of the game and start putting atomic bombs on them to prevent them from ripening. It's so clear. That's purification. We do that at the end of the day. We're insane not to do it every day, simply because forget the past karmic seeds that we planted in millions of lifetimes, but every second of today, given that we're still ordinary beings driven by attachment and aversion, actions we're going to do throughout the day are going to be negative. So we're planting millions of negative seeds nevertheless, maybe not as heavy as killing and stealing and lying, but nevertheless we're planting lots. We've got to purify them. I've got to do some weeding. You can't just let you can stop sowing weeds in your garden, but if you don't start pulling out the weeds that are there, or doing something to burn the weeds that you've grown that haven't yet ripened, your garden will get suffocated. So you've got to do purification. It's a completely fundamental part of a daily practice. And as Rinpoche says, we're insane not to do it every day. So this really does, this attitude, this approach to karma is so different from the way we live our lives, you know. And so it takes a while to think about it and to treat it seriously, not as neurotic and fearful and guilty, but as intelligent, you know. In other words, if you use the analogy of eating, you've got to stop eating sugar immediately, because you don't want diabetes, but you also, because you've been eating sugar for so long, you've got to take some preventative methods to purify your body, to heal yourself, because you've done already so much eating of sugar, you don't want that to ripen either. So that's purification. You go on fast, you stop eating sugar, and then you go on a fast. So fasting is like the purification, or eat good food, you know. There's these two levels of practice. Okay, so we'll talk about vows first, and then we'll talk about purification. Vows are huge for the Buddha. He loves his vows. So from the whole approach to all of Buddhist practice from A to Z, from the entire path all the way to, you know, postgraduate, got junior school and high school level, there's one set of vows. These are the ones we're going to describe here. And they're called the vows of individual liberation. These are the vows in the Pratimoksha, they call it, individual liberation. These are the vows of all the Theravadan part of the path, like I said before, I can't remember your name, sweetheart, in Vegas. You know, the Theravadan path is this path we're describing here. This is the wisdom wing teachings. This is all the teachings that we practice to help ourselves stop suffering and eventually get out of samsara. So the first level of vows here are the vows that help us become liberated from samsara, the vows for our own sake. Well, these are the first lot. The next lot are the Bodhisattva vows, belonging to the Mahayana path. And the third lot of the tantric vows, 3 levels of vows for the 3 levels of teaching. So we're discussing here the first level. So these level of vows are like, you know, they're sort of a more, they're related to these 10 non-virtues. That's a general set of advice that Buddha would give us. And now once we commit ourselves, we then will take the 5 layperson's vows. So what is it about a vow that's said to be so potent psychologically? There's logic to it. Let's think about it. Okay. Remember we said before, And we do any actions, we're doing actions all day. We're eating, sleeping, going to the toilet, walking here, doing this, going there. Everything we do is called an action. Everything we do is called a karma. We do it with our body and speech, and it's driven by something in the mind. So most of what we do now, being samsaric people, we don't have to be evil monsters to be like this, are driven by attachment and aversion. I won't eat that because I have aversion for it. I won't talk to that person because I don't like them. I'll talk to that one because I have attachment. I'll be kind to this one because I've got attachment. I'll be mean to that one because I've got aversion. Well, it's normal behavior. You're not going to be a psychopath yet. Just ordinary behavior. We're driven by attachment and aversion. So the more we become conscious of karma, we start to clean up our act and be conscious and try to at least first control our body and speech. At least first control our body and speech. And vows are all about body and speech. They're all about behavior. They're not about the mind at all. They're about behavior. Because behavior is the body and speech, and the body and speech are the servants of our mind, aren't they? They do the wishes of what's in our mind. So these first level of vows, there's no wiggle room. It's very clear, very strong. You just don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, don't cheat on your partner, and don't take intoxicants. There's 5 of these, 4 from that 10 group, and then 1 extra. So you don't have to, when you take these vows, when you take a refuge and you take these vows, you don't need to take all. You can take some of them. You know, some people, if you want your heroin shot every day, you don't take the intoxicants one, do you? For example. So, okay, so how do you break the vow of killing, and what does it mean? So killing, you break the vow in a major way. I'll say the vows first, then I'll tell you the power of vows. You break the vow in a major way if you kill a human being, and it has to be with intention. Intention is the key factor. Remember in the creating of karma, I think it was Rosanna, I think I said, who had a mouse in her kitchen, but she didn't see the mouse. Her foot went on the mouse and the mouse died. So if her mind is not involved, if she doesn't see the mouse, therefore has no intention to kill and has no motivation, there's no karma. How can there be? Karma is imprints in the mind. The mind is imprinted with karmic tendencies. So how can you say if you're sitting at the piano and your fingers do something you don't notice, you can't be saying you're playing the piano. It's got to be your mind first. Your body and speech follow what the mind is doing, although we don't realize that. So if just the body does something, there's no mind involved, there's no karma. Karma just means intention. There's no mental action. So here, killing, you break killing in a major way. If you intend to kill the human being, you have no conscience about it, you know you've got a vow and you don't care. So it's pretty heavy to break a vow because we don't usually do that. So it's very powerful to have that vow to guide you. So you break in a major way if you break a human, and you have to you break the vows at the root, and you have to take it again in front of somebody. Second, then you break in a minor way if you kill any sentient being, again, with intention, not caring, no interest, and no interest in fixing it, something like that. So that's like a bug, a rat, cockroach. That's kind of intense one for the West because we just think it's normal to kill these dudes, Then the next vow is no stealing, no taking the ungiven, the Tibetans call it. It's very direct. So you break in a major way that vow if you take something of value to someone else. So you could argue stealing $20 from a homeless person could definitely be breaking the vow in a major way because that's of value to them. And you break a stealing in a minor way if you take anything that hasn't been given to you. It's a great way to say it in Tibetan, taking the ungiven. We should be very careful with that one because it's so easy these days with computers. Just press a button and you get someone's movie, You get music, you get things for free, we think. Because, you could argue it's been offered to you, but we know it's not coming from anybody buying it. Someone's taken it, So it really needs a good discipline to think about this one. You break lying in a major way if you lie about your spiritual attainments. So just be quiet about your practice, it's really important. You break lying in a minor way if you say anything that misleads somebody intentionally that isn't true. We don't lie often, but we speculate. We love talking in our culture and we think we know everything. So we'll just give answers all the time, even we're not even sure what we're talking about. So we're not really meaning to lie, but we mislead people. So we've got to be so conscious with speech, And the next one of the body, there's another one of the body, is they call it sexual misconduct. Basically, like His Holiness says, don't rape, don't misuse your body to harm others based on sexual attachment, but don't cheat on your partner. If you've got a commitment to a partner, you don't cheat on yours and you don't take someone else's. And the fifth one is no intoxicants. Nothing that would completely destroy your senses, So the point about a vow is this. It's very practical. We're sitting here at this moment, most of us in our houses right this second, not killing anything. So we're not killing. This is true. We are doing the action of not killing, but we're not doing the action of not killing because our mind is not thinking at this second, I will not kill. And why are we not thinking that? Because, you know, there's no mouse in front of you that you have to try and tell yourself not to kill. So if there's no thought, I will not kill, there is no karma created of the very powerful virtuous action called intentional not killing. So intention has to be there for the imprint in your mind to be there. I mean, all the rats and cockroaches in your house are really relaxed because you're not killing them, but there's no intention not to kill them. So therefore there's no intention, there's no karma. Very simple. So then that's why, as Lama Zopa says, we need to live in vows, because vows are so potent that because you've committed strongly, you've made a decision when you take refuge, you're committed to, you know, you've decided you want to identify yourself as a Buddhist, you commit to the Buddhist teachings, you commit to do certain things every day, you agree to that, and then you take these vows. So in general, a commitment is a decision to do something, and a vow is a decision to refrain from something. So the Buddha says vows are so potent that 24 hours, and then you kneel down, once you've taken refuge, you kneel down in front of somebody, you take the vows. So then 24 hours a day that you're keeping that vow of not killing, even when you're asleep, even when you're not thinking about it. Vows are so potent that they even say it's like a subtle physical energy that's within you, that's visible to clairvoyance. So that by having a vow, it pervades your whole mind. And then 24 hours a day, on the strength of that vow, you're ticking over virtuous karmic seeds of non-killing 24 hours a day into your bank vault. And so you've got lots of delicious, rich, intentional karmic seeds there, and we need those just to get another decent human body. And second, the power of vows is such that you're putting atomic bombs every second under the tendency to kill. It weakens your tendency to kill. So in other words, you see, normally we would create the karma of not killing when you have the intention not to kill that mouse and then have compassion. That's when you pop a seed into your non-killing bank vault. But how often does that happen? I mean, if you're living in, I remember living in India, being in India, and during the rainy season, you're forced to think of not killing 24 hours a day because it's like Jurassic Park. They're bombarding you, these creatures. And every second you're walking, I remember at Bodh Gaya Stupa in the rainy season, as dusk comes, the whole ground is a carpet of living beings. So you can't even take a step without thinking, I must not kill, I must not kill, I must not kill. It's powerful. But who wants to live their life like that? It's exhausting. Just to have a vow, live in a vow 24 hours a day, and you're ticking over virtuous karmic seeds. I mean, just to hear this is kind of powerful. So it's an easy way to create lots of virtuous karma of non-killing. Lots. Powerful, because the point is, when we do decide not to kill, if we do decide, our motivation is the key factor that makes it powerful, but our motivation is not so strong. So having a vow overrides that. Vows are so powerful. This is Buddha's teaching, you know. So as Lama Zopa said, you could have one person doing bucket loads of spiritual teachings, spiritual practice every day, but not living in vows of even just not killing. But another person merely having the vow not to kill. That person creates infinite more virtue and purifies their mind than the person who's doing practice all day. So vows are said to be stupendous. And this is a fundamental Buddhist teaching, you know. Of course, it needs thinking about, because it's all pretty abstract for us thinking this way. But we can't get ahead of the game without vows, you know. Being good, being nice is just not enough, as Lama Zopa says. Our virtue has to be practiced in the framework of having lived in vows. And this is why he says that the karma we must have created just to get this human body and to have all the various good conditions that we've got and that enable us to even be sitting here wanting more spiritual practice, we must have practiced this virtue in the framework of living in vows of morality within practicing a spiritual path. So it's said to be very, very powerful. So before we get to purification, do you have any questions about vows?
Yes, I do have a question about vows.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the frame of mind of a practitioner? So, and I'll use myself as an example. And I've been fortunate to have taken vows. And, you know, I can feel that there's some level of sincerity, but it's not like a complete 100%. I don't even know how to say it. It's like, it's almost like I'm vowing to want to really live by vows, but there's a level of you know, I'm not there 100%. I'm taking,
Which bit aren't you there 100% with? I don't understand.
well, it has to do with a deeper intention. Of course, I refrain from killing, but I've been shocked to discover that killing is probably the thing I do the most every day, just walking around.
Okay, so say the question again, Kavita.
So the question is, I want to not kill, and all this applies to all the vows. I want to not kill, but I recognize I'm living a life where I'm still going to kill. I've taken the vow, but I feel like there's some kind of gap between my intention and the I don't know. I'm just.
Why are you surprised by that?
I don't know.
Why do you assume you should be any better than that? What makes you think you should be better than that?
I don't know. Because
that's your misconception. So you've got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
You've got to start somewhere. You've got to be just very humble and accept you've got to start somewhere. Junior school, entry level. Do you appreciate the meaning of vows?
Yes, yeah.
And you know the vows you've taken.
I do know the vows I've taken.
You attempt to live according to those vows.
I attempt to live according to those vows.
Well, why can't you be content with that and shut up? I'm not being mean, I'm being serious. Because all you're doing, like the rest of us, you're never satisfied. Because you think you should be better than you are, Kavita. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing. So you've got to start somewhere, and you've got to start first with intellectual, not even with much knowledge, just a genuine appreciation of living a moral life and recognizing based on what your teachers say, because you trust your teachers who say this based on Buddha's teachings, and you delight in the fact that you're keeping your vows, and then you purify at the end of the day. What more could you do? And as you progress, you must know that it'll get more sincere and more vast and more deep as you keep going, won't it? So just be patient and be humble and be happy with what you're doing. Surely there's no other answer. What can you do? You've got to start somewhere and be content with it. Now, if you're lying to yourself and you're not keeping your vows, then you're demented. You understand? Are we communicating or not? It's called dissatisfaction, honey. It's the function of attachment. An assumption we're not doing well enough. Now, if you're not doing well enough, if you're not, then be real, be sincere, but you're doing the best you can based on your knowledge, and you keep moving. And as you know, it's incremental, and you'll keep getting better, and your wisdom will get deeper, and you'll get more nuanced and more subtle in your understanding. You know, like we hear the teachers talk about how when you really understand karma, the best we can do, sweetheart, is my opinion. What do you think?
Do you think, or have you found it to be the case that as your bodhicitta grows, that the vows become more potent?
It goes without saying, doesn't it? I mean, think about you practicing music and you're at grade 1 and you're so delighted. You say, Mummy, you're 5 years old and you passed grade 1. You're so excited. But look, when you're in grade 14, look how much better your grade 1 is. It's like that. Naturally, as you get better at the later grades, it informs your earlier grades as well. Of course it does. There's no question. This is just how all knowledge grows. That's how all knowledge grows. It's just natural. Do you understand? So be content with it, I'd say. Be sincere, but be content, I would suggest. Are we communicating, do you think? Have I missed something?
Thank you, yeah. Yeah.
Any questions about vows?
Yes, Venerable Robina.
Yes, Rebecca.
First of all, thank you so much for the teaching today. Is it correct that if you have broken a vow at the root, that I had always understood, maybe incorrectly, that when you renewed, say that you took the vows again, that you were renewing vows that had been broken. But recently I was in a teaching where we were told that no, once you've broken a root vow, it cannot be, you don't have that vow anymore, that you can't renew it. Is that correct?
I don't know. Are you talking tantric vow, bodhisattva vow?
No, pretty much for vows.
Well, I don't know who the teacher is, and I can't comment on it. I can only tell you what I've learned.
Yeah, well, that's what I want to know.
I don't know, but I mean, you've just been told by one teacher. I don't know. I can't say. I mean, that means you might as well give up and die now. I can't imagine that. Or well, But that's what I've heard, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to comment on that because I've not heard that teaching. I don't know. And you have to check up on these teachings. You have to decide, you have to check up on it. Because if you can't purify all broken vows, I mean, in Tantra, you know, you've got the Samaya Vajra, which can break, you've got Vajrasattva. You read all the commentaries of all the lamas. These practices are able to purify even the root vows. So I don't know where that teaching comes from. I don't know. I don't.
That's why I'm checking to see if I understood.
Yeah, that's one person, but I don't know. I can't say anything about what that person's saying. You have to check up on what that person's saying. I can only quote you on what I have heard from the teachers I know, which is Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa, and the other lamas who talk about the certain practices in Tantra that they'll purify all vows. It's the whole point about purification. That's the whole point about purification. So if you truly can't purify a broken vow, it's broken forever, then you'll never get enlightened. That's impossible. You'll never get enlightened. You might as well give up now, logically, if that's the case.
Yeah, so yes, it was said that you can purify. I'm asking from your perspective.
Oh, you just said you can't.
No, I said you can purify it, but that you no longer have the vow if you've broken it. You can purify the karma, but that you don't have the vow anymore.
I don't understand that. I don't know what that means.
I didn't either. So I'm asking.
You've got to look into it. I don't know what to say to that, but you need to look into that teaching. So you mean you don't, how can you, so if you don't have a vow, so you mean if you kill a human being with intention and you break your vow at the root, are you telling me that you can purify the karma you created, but you no longer have a vow not to kill? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I understood that she said, yes.
And the same with the tantric vow, bodhisattva vow, or these are pratimoksha
This was lay vows. It was the topic.
I have no idea. I cannot answer. I do not know. I do not know, darling. So you have to look into that and get the logic clear. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that.
So let me rephrase if you don't mind. So if, say, I took a vow from you and I broke the vow, if I purified it and then on another occasion I met you again and you were giving vows again and I took them even though I'd already taken vows to renew, do I have the vow?
That's what I understand. That's my whole point.
Okay, very good.
I understand. You look in Lama Zopa's basic teachings on refuge and vows. If you break a vow at the root, you have to take it again. That's what they say, the words they say. I don't know if there's other meaning. Maybe there's a teaching there. I'm not arguing with this other view. I can only tell you what I know, and I can read Lama Zopa's one. If you break a vow at the root, you must take it. You can't just purify it on your own. You have to go and take it in front of somebody who represents a Buddha for you to take it again. That's how they put it. That's all I understand. I'm not saying the other person is wrong, but I don't know what to say to what they say. So you have to look into it.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Robina, I have a question about not taking intoxicants.
Yes, Sasha.
Several of my teachers, Rinpoches, drank alcohol.
That doesn't, you don't know that they've got a vow, do you?
No, I don't. But for me, I want to know, is it all right to have wine with dinner sometimes?
If you don't have a vow, Sasha, you don't break a vow, do you?
Or should I make
If you don't have a vow, Sasha, you don't break a vow. If you don't have a vow, you're not breaking it, are you? But
is it important to have a vow to not drink any wine with dinner, or does it not matter? I mean, for years I didn't, and then
that's your decision. That's your decision, Sasha.
It doesn't.
You have to know your mind and what is best for you.
Okay, because for years I didn't, and then I was with a teacher in Europe, and I did. Yeah. So it's individual. It's if you're not drinking to get drunk,
That's another discussion. If you have a vow not to drink, then when you drink, you break a vow. If you don't have a vow not to drink, you're not breaking a vow. We're talking about vows here, but we're talking about a vow here. The
Just
vow.
wondering if that is a good vow to have, or if it's
you have
not.
to know your mind. I mean, obviously, Buddha's got a vow called not drinking. He must have a logic for it, mustn't he? What vows are Buddha's explanation of the practices we can commit to do in order to turn ourselves into a better human being. So we should, we should look into the meaning of it to see why that would be so, and then you can make your decision. You can see if you see the benefit of controlling your body and speech, if you can see the benefit of refraining from actions that cause your body and speech to be out of control, then you wouldn't see the benefit of taking the vow. That's what you have to do. Obviously, if it's in the vows, the Buddha, whose vows these are, and his recommendations, you have to look into the benefit of it.
Yeah, okay, one other question on vows. I never thought I would kill anybody or anything and I became a vegetarian years ago, and then I stopped after some years because I couldn't kill any animals or fish or even eat chicken's eggs. But then I had a gardener kill some rats because I let them run wild for quite a long time. And then there became so many, he said I had to do something about it. They were, a problem. So I said, okay, and we said a prayer before he set the traps, but I felt really bad about doing it.
What question?
Well, so did I create bad karma by
So based on what you've heard me talk about today and yesterday, what do you think? Have you analyzed the actions?
Well, I had the intention to kill, so that I didn't want to, but I had the intention. So maybe I created bad karma.
Based upon you've got to think about what I said and read the teachings in that book you've got, and I think you'll come to your own conclusion. It's like technical. You work it out, you work it out yourself, Sasha.
Okay, I haven't read the book yet. Yeah, I've been too
No,
busy,
it's all
but
there.
I'm definitely going to do that. Yeah.
Good, wonderful.
Good. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Sasha.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions?
Venerable?
Yes. Who's
Hi,
there?
Judy.
Hello, Judy, darling. Talk to me.
So a way to fast track and purify past karmic actions. I thought to use the 6 perfections.
Darling, we haven't, just before you continue your question, sweetheart, we haven't gone into purification yet. We're just talking about that. We're going to discuss purification in a second, and then I think it's useful you answer that question later.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Any questions about vows? Just the meaning of vows, as we've been discussing. Then we can talk about purification itself.
I'm not sure. No, I guess I don't. It's
Okay.
Joanne. This is
Go
Joanne.
ahead.
My question's really probably not, we can defer it, but it's about daily practice. 'Cause
Yes.
those are vows too. And there's just such a routine that happens where there's no, for me, there's no consciousness. That's not generally what happens with a vow, because I'm quite aware of what I'm doing when I take a vow. But daily practice gets to be just sort of, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore.
Rote, you mean? No, that can happen easily because we just become automatic, don't we? We get so it's hard to give it feeling and give it life every day, isn't it? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, and
Right, we can take that
then
to-
the imprint and the effect, I presume, would not be very effective.
Well, no, I mean, sort of it's obvious in a way. You can see if you just, play the piano every day automatically for half an hour, something's happening. But the more heart you put into it, obviously more happens. It's sort of obvious, isn't it? There's still some benefit. You can see that if you're every day just saying blah, 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 and putting all the imprints go in, but if your heart is in it, it's obviously more powerful. It's sort of clear. And that's very hard sometimes to keep the heart going, It's quite difficult, Joanne. It's not easy.
Yes.
I know, darling, believe me.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about purification now, this process, okay? It's kind of framed in 4 steps. The 4 R's, good way to remember it. And basically it's a psychological process. If you strip it right away, we can see in the Tibetans, you've got all these practices. All this is framed in terms of being a practice. You can have your bells and your dorjis and your Sanskrit and your Tibetan. We get so confused, but we strip it all away. It comes down to this really fundamental psychological steps in your mind. And given that everything we think and do and say brings results, then we can hear the logic of it immediately. So the first 4, so what we're purifying, like I said, what we're purifying, it's like the analogy of kind of pulling out the weeds. There's the action of refraining from growing the weeds, which is intentionally not killing, intentionally not stealing. But here we're now going to take care of the seeds we've already planted from the past of killing and stealing, etc. And we want to put atomic bombs under them to loosen the habit, to loosen the grip of those habits. That's what purification is. So the first of these 4 R's, and it's in your book, one of those chapters, is regret. The second is reliance. The third is the remedy. And the 4th is resolve, speaking very simply. So again, using simple examples. If you've eaten sugar and you have a tendency to get diabetes, you first have to acknowledge the simple fact that you ate sugar. If you say, no, it's not my fault, someone else made me eat sugar. No, I didn't eat sugar. Or you say, I ate sugar and I'm so guilty, I'm so bad. Or someone else told me to eat sugar. Whose fault is it? We have denial, anger, and guilt. They're all useless states of mind. But simply the recognition, oh my God, what an idiot. I can't believe myself, I ate sugar. And then you have the attitude of regretting having done it. Not, oh, I shouldn't have eaten sugar. Shouldn't have is a meaningless concept. It's just anger against yourself. It has no action. It is useless. So regret is a very wholesome attitude that goes, oh my God, I can't believe myself. What an idiot. I ate sugar. And you know what, Robina, I regret that. You have to say, why? Because I don't want diabetes, baby. I don't want the future result. So that's the framework of the concept of regret. I always quote this, but His Holiness, you know, His Holiness said, for example, when a person asked, what's the difference between guilt and this regret? So guilt is what we love to have, what we typically have. It's very ancient, it's very deep in us, and it's the function of ego grasping, the function of the main neurotic state of mind, this sense of poor me, you know? So guilt, as His Holiness said, you look in the past with guilt and you go, I did this and I did this action and I did that and I kicked the dog and I killed my mother. And then we conclude automatically without any awareness, oh my God, and I am a bad person. That's how we feel all the time. We build up our views that we've done something wrong and then we feel guilty. It is a terrible, painful state of mind and it's completely not productive. It's not useful. It's no benefit whatsoever. And all it is anger and you are the object and we do it automatically. It's a very deep habit. So we're going to catch it 1,000 times a day, you know. So guilt is anger. So exactly the same as I point to you and I say, you did this and you did that and you did this and you're a bad person. That's anger. But here guilt is, it's anger, but I'm the object. And it's a paralyzed state of mind. It just builds up as negative energy and it beats ourselves up and it exaggerates the whole of me as being a bad person. I mean, the Christians have a wonderful saying. They say, don't criticize the sinner, criticize the sin. So you're not a bad person. Guilt exaggerates and calls the whole of you bad based upon a half a dozen things you did wrong. So you don't, that's a foolish thing. You know, to say, oh, I ate sugar and then go, oh, I'm such a bad person. We can't help but do this. It's so primordial. It's so profound and it's so typical and it's so ancient. We really have to counteract it. So here, the second one, regret. Okay. Regret, the first part, as His Holiness said, is exactly the same. I did do this. I did eat sugar. But then you say, and you have to constantly make this happen, but what can I do to fix it? That's when the action starts. That's productive. That's useful. That's grown up. That's accountability. Guilt feels like a virtue. We feel good. Somehow I can see my faults and we quickly beat ourselves up for them. We kind of get it in there first and say, I'm a bad person before someone else does it. But it's not useful. It's not beneficial and it's exaggerating. The key function of all delusions, anger and attachment, they exaggerate. So guilt exaggerates our badness and we run to it naturally. It's the function of ego grasping. It's the function of the root delusion. So the first part we have to retain. I did eat sugar. You own it, say it so clearly, accept it, no wiggle room, no kind of get out of it, no blaming others, no guilt, no denial. And this is a hard point to get to. I did eat sugar. And then you have to say, and you know what, Robina, and this is like kindness to yourself. I regret that. What a fool, because I do not want the future suffering. That's the basis of regret. So you've got to spell it out like that. So here we're discussing actions that we've done to harm others. So in this life, we mightn't be monsters, we mightn't be rapists, we mightn't be murderers, but we're mean to people. We say unkind words. We hurt this person. We might have taken that thing. We might have killed that ant. We've done actions that have harmed others. We might have had an abortion. Whatever in our life, we've done actions with our body and our speech that have harmed others. So it's a useful psychology when you do the practice in the end of the day. Certainly that day, you remember the things in that day. You badmouth the drivers, you shout at your boyfriend, the simple things. Because we know by the end of the day, we're all caught up and contorted with misery about the bad things we've done. So we've got to unpack them. And we recognize I did this at 11 o'clock and at 12 o'clock I did this and at 1 o'clock I did that. You acknowledge and you say, I regret it. And you're talking to yourself. This practice is like being kind to yourself. And I really mean that, you know. I regret having done that because I'm sick of the suffering. With just saying I regret it is not useful. because it becomes guilt. You got to spell it out. I regret it because I'm sick of this suffering. I'm sick of this pain. I'm fed up with this habit, and I don't want the future suffering. I don't want the future results. I'm sick of this suffering. So that's makes it a kind action to yourself. They don't call it, the Buddhists don't call it compassion for yourself, but it's like that. That's the first step. It's ownership. Ownership. And then, of course, you can regret all the things you've done in this life that you've harmed others. I mean, I always think of my abortion when I was 23, you know, I had an abortion. And regret isn't saying, again, the crucial point is regret isn't saying I shouldn't have done that. What point is it saying? You've done it. You can't cry over spilt milk. It's a profound statement. You recognize you did do it. And out of my foolishness at the time, I didn't think of it as a sentient being. I was just following my own needs. I'm just talking about myself. Each person's different. And it was just self-centered. I didn't think about it. The habit was a very clearly strong thing to do. I didn't think twice about it. And there was a human being there, and I killed a human being. So I regret it. Because why? First of all, it's not compassion for the baby yet. This comes second. This is compassion for yourself. I programmed my mind with killing. I had a tendency to kill. I followed it. I haven't done it since. I haven't had a baby since. I haven't killed others since either. But it was some karma there to kill that particular baby. This human being who came to my womb. And that shows the karmic history between people. I never had the thought before and since to kill anybody or even animals. But there's some karma between me and that being who came to my womb at the age of 23. And even the second I was with the boy, I knew that second a person had come to me. I didn't know the words. I knew that second I was pregnant. That second I said to myself, oh no, I'm pregnant. And that second I decided to have an abortion. So that shows the strength of the karma between me and that person. She or he, whoever it was, had the strong karma to come to my womb. They won the lottery and got a human birth. At the same time, their karma called experience, similar to the cause, the third track of karma, they had the karma also to die young and to get killed by me. So the karma was very strong between us. So I had the abortion. So I always regret that one, because I didn't think I was harming myself. So I killed. So I regret it because I don't want future suffering. I don't want to get killed. I don't want to have the karma to continue to kill. So by regretting it, because I don't want the future suffering. So it's a wholesome reason to regret. It's out of kindness to yourself that you regret it. It's not compassion yet. That comes second. Then you think, if you like the idea of past lives, then you think, and whatever I've done since beginningless time, with my body and speech to harm others, whatever I've done, I regret from the depths of my heart, because I don't want these seeds to ripen. I don't want these to ripen as weeds and choke my garden. I don't want them to ripen. They haven't ripened yet. So by having this regret is so powerful, it's putting atomic bombs on them already. So then the next step naturally follows. Well, like you've eaten the sugar. Well, whom can I turn to give me the antidote? You turn to the doctor. So Buddha is, in this framework, our relationship with Buddha is as a doctor. He's not our creator. He will not forgive. He would forgive. He's a nice person, but that is meaningless in Buddhism. And that's the Christian teaching. It's very powerful teaching. What makes you pure is by God forgiving you. There's no talk like that. That's like going to your doctor and asking you to forgive you for eating sugar, and that purifies you from getting diabetes. It doesn't work like that. You rely upon the doctor, but you do the work. So we rely upon the Buddha, but we do the work. It's just a person we rely upon. It's very powerful. So how might we, then the second step, we turn to the Buddha. The first part of the second step, reliance, is two parts, 2A and 2B. So 2A, reliance. You delight. It's like really the attitude of refuge. You delight. You got a doctor. I mean, don't say, oh yeah, I take refuge in Buddha, blah, blah, blah. You'd be so happy you've found a doctor whose medicine you want. I mean, cheer and delight. You won the lottery and found a doctor who's got good medicine. Wow. Amazing. Refuge. So here in this meditation way, we would do it. And if we can, we'll do it today, maybe tomorrow, we'll do it tomorrow. We visualize Buddha in a particular form. This is where coming into the question earlier about medicine Buddha. In Tibetans especially, this is where it's, for the, I can't remember your name, sweetheart, in Vegas. But here in the Tibetan tradition, the Mahayana, we have a lot of practices where we use the Buddha as part of our visualization. All the teachers would say that any practice we do that brings in the Buddha into the practice, because of the power of enlightened beings, because of the potency of that connection, the practices have more power, more purification, more merit, more virtue, So here we would visualize the Buddha in a particular aspect from Vajrayana above our crowns, and it's called Vajrasattva. And we just then delight, we found this doctor, this Buddha. And the second part of this reliance is now where we have compassion for those we've harmed. The regret is like compassion for yourself, like I said. You've got to cultivate that, say it. I regret those actions I've done because I'm sick of suffering, because I don't want the suffering. This is so important to spell it out like that. Now we think of those we've harmed. I think of the baby I aborted. I think of the ants I've killed. I think of the people I've harmed. I think of the boyfriends I've cheated on, whatever. And then since beginning of this time, I mean, we've been animals in countless lives, Buddha says, you know. And that's a weird one for us, of course it is. We can't, I mean, as animals, we harm each other brutally and continuously out of such fear and suffering. No choice, you know. So having strong compassion for all those creatures I've harmed in my past lives, because I know what it's like to suffer, so I know what it's like for them to suffer. I have such compassion. I must regret for their sake. I must purify for their sake. And if you're brave enough, try and have compassion now for those who've harmed you. If you're not ready for that, then don't do it. If you can, marvelous. Third one, the remedy. You apply the antidote. So you don't just regret eating sugar and stop eating sugar, which is the fourth step, stop eating sugar, you must, but you must do something to be the antidote so it won't ripen. So this third step is anything can be the antidote. In daily life, the antidote to eating sugar would be to take food that counteracts the harm of the sugar. The antidote to killing would be to try and save lives. The antidote to stealing would be to give something. They're obviously antidotes, they're opposites. But here, there's a very potent practice that all the Buddhists, all the Tibetans certainly praise and all do. This third step, the antidote, is done in the form of a meditation. So this is a meditation practice we're describing. So now, the practice here, this third step, is using your mind, using your visualization, using your capacity for thinking. And you imagine the Buddha, and you imagine sending nectar from the Buddha and filling you completely, and you say the mantra related to this Buddha. This is said to be super powerful medicine. You're using the visualization of the Buddha, but you do the work. It's your mind imagining the Buddha, your mind imagining nectar coming, your mind wanting to purify, your words saying the mantra. You do the purification. It's you who do it, not Buddha. You use Buddha. You do the work. We'll do this tomorrow, the whole practice. The fourth step, the most important, really, depends. The resolve to not do it again. This is a crucial one. So in other words, if you eat sugar and then you just get guilty, I'm a bad person, I eat sugar, all twisted and contorted, I'm a bad person, you will never fully do anything to change it. You'll never apply the antidote, and you will never vow not to do it again. You'll be stuck in it, miserable. You want to kill yourself. Utterly useless. It's not grown up. Guilt is child. Guilt is no responsibility, no accountability. And it's common in all of us. So this one, you make commitments, you know, you make a decision. So you've got to vow not to kill, not to steal, not to lie, and you can reiterate those vows every day. I mean, this is where this powerful step of this fourth step is so huge. When you say, even, we all know in general, when you make a decision to do something, that's when you'll do it. You can say for 27 years, oh, I must go on a diet, I must go on a diet, I will go on a diet, no, I must go on a diet. You'll never go on a diet until you say, I will go on a diet. When you say, I will, that's volition, that's intention, then you'll do it. Then you'll do it. So this is saying, I will. So if you've got a vow not to kill and you reiterate it at the end of the day, it's like, you know, strengthening that vow. I will never kill. You've taken a vow to never kill. If every day you say, I will never kill, what you do is you deepen that tendency in your mind. It's not just wish fulfilling. It's not just kind of cross your fingers and hope for the best. The mind is super powerful. So every time you keep your vow and you say, and throughout the day you check it, and then you regret anything you maybe weakened the vow by accidentally killing the ant or something, you don't want to keep it, you want to keep it strong. And then at the end you will vow, I will never kill. And then again, 24 hours later, I will never kill. And 24 hours later, and that powerfully digs the groove ever deeper in your mind. It strengthens that vow. And it protects you. So all of these four steps have this powerful way of changing your mind, you know. You make decisions. So if you, as long as you don't lie to yourself. So if you badmouth your boyfriend every day, you don't say, I'll never badmouth my boyfriend again. No, you maybe say, I won't badmouth him for 24 hours. You make a firm decision. You make a firm decision, and that gives you courage. The next morning you wake up, that kind of, then you remind yourself, and then that day you'll be careful, and you might not, you won't badmouth your boyfriend because you decided. But this is how I'm a bad person. I badmouth my boyfriend. I'm so hopeless. I can't, blah, blah, blah. You'll never change your mind. You'll never do it. You won't have courage. So these are very clear, logical steps, these 4 steps. Regretting, owning the fact that you did it. And I'm sick of this because I don't want the suffering. It's about yourself. Second, whom can I turn to? The Buddha. Thank goodness I got a decent doctor. Second part, compassion now for those you've harmed. Third, you do the practice, imagining, purifying, visualizing, thinking. Your mind does it. And the mantra. Fourth, decision to change. It's incremental and gradual. And if you take this seriously, it becomes very experiential. You can just do this by rote and it gets boring. But if you do it seriously, it's genuine. And it's you being your own friend. It's you taking responsibility and changing every day, sincerely. It's brilliant psychology, I tell you. We do it sincerely. It's accountability. It's courage. It's confidence. Because there's no karma you can't purify. There's no seed in the mind that can't be removed. There's no such thing, you know. So another whole component, another whole level of how these things purify, like we've already talked. There are 4 ways that our karma ripens. So the first one would be, as I said, okay, each of these 4 opponent powers purifies specifically each of the 4 ways that karma ripens. So the first one is very tasty. So Sasha, for example, being stolen from, she says, people steal from her. So our first instinct, let's say you get accused of doing something at work, or someone lies to you, or your boyfriend cheats on you. The pain of it is unbelievable, isn't it? Because we feel so badly done by. How dare this happen to me? And so this regret is a very powerful practice. Regret. So what you do is, you see, regretting, let's say someone's accusing you of lying. No, let's say Sasha's example of being stolen from. So instead of trying to go to court and stop the person stealing or whatever you want to do, you can do that too, but until you purify the karma itself, it won't ever stop. So the first step, then what you do is in your practice that night, you think of whatever the stealing was that I did from that person in whichever life it was, the stealing that I must have done, which is why they're stealing from me now. I regret that from the depths of my heart. And why do I regret it, you say to yourself? Because guess what? I don't like being stolen from. And there it is right there. You know you don't like being stolen from. It's right that second you're being stolen from. So you regret the cause of it, which is your past stealing. Don't be surprised, it'll solve the problem. Why don't you go to court and spend money? It'll fix it. Regret is powerful. It purifies the kind of karma called experience similar to the cause, which is that bad thing happening to you. Okay, if the karma is that strong in that life, you won't stop it, but it'll certainly prevent you from next life. You will never get stolen from again. You will never get lied to or stolen from or killed or lied or anything else because you've purified the cause by regretting it. This is psychologically logical. Very powerful. So, of course, it's experientially right now. Instead of this victim, how dare they steal from me, how dare they bad mouth, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. We all do that. It suddenly makes you take responsibility. You own it. I caused this. This is a powerful attitude, I tell you. Of course, it takes time to do this with conviction. Second, compassion and the refuge, the second step, that purifies environmental karma. So environmental karma, you know, let's say killing environmental karma, like right now, you're living around people who've got COVID-19, you could die by touching them. That's environmental karma of past killing. So by having compassion for sentient beings, that purifies that. By having compassion for sentient beings, because the sentient beings are your environment, you know, not the ones close to you, but the ones around you, like all the sick people. Like right now, every one of us has got an environment of dying people, sick people. We can't even touch each other. That's heavy duty. That's the result of killing. That's the environmental result, karma of killing. So instead of having revulsion for those people with COVID-19, have compassion for them. Then they won't harm you. You purify environmental karma. Third, we're not talking long-term in life, future, you know, but we're talking right now, we can even see the effects of this now. Third one, doing the mantra and the visualization, that purifies a lower realm result. being born in the lower realms, which of course is, can you mute again, Kavita? Kavita, can you mute again, everybody? The third one, it purifies lower realm karma. And if we think about that one, that's kind of powerful, if we can relate to that one. And the fourth one is really obvious. The I will not kill again. Guess what that purifies? The habit to kill. So clear. So it's a powerful practice, psychologically. Don't hear it as punishment. Don't hear it as someone forgiving you. Don't hear it as religion. It's practical, powerful, grounded psychology. It's taking responsibility. It's ownership. It's very powerful. So that's purification. So now ask me some questions about it.
Well, I have a question about the second of the opponent powers, the refuge.
Yes.
Reliance, yeah.
Or reliance, but can you expand on why that is an essential component of the 4 opponent powers?
Well, honey, Jesus, God in heaven, if you've got diabetes, or you're eating sugar and you're sick, how in the name of God can you get a method if you don't have a doctor? Where can you find the method from to fix it? If you don't have a doctor, how can you get better?
Let's take the example of killing.
No, honey, hear my words first. It's the same analogy. We're talking here. I mean, we're using here. Okay, you can, of course, you can have compassion. You can revow, you can have compassion, but that view even is based upon the Buddhist analysis. So here, Buddha's our doctor. This is his analysis. This analysis without a doctor has no sense. There's no view without a doctor. There's no view of how things are without a person whose mind it came from. It's not self-existent. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a Christian and you rely on Jesus, that's his view that you're relying upon. So, I mean, if you just go, okay, put it this way, it doesn't mean it still wouldn't work, because if you've got some tendency of virtue and you know, and you've got a tendency, and Buddha would say it's from past life, whether you're a Christian or a Muslim or a materialist, and you've got some sense of secular ethics, isn't it? Secular ethics, but you don't harm others. That's good enough. There's something powerful there. It's true. It's not wrong. There will be purification. But you know, you'll think I was really wrong. I killed, but you won't have the view that it's harming you, because that's a particular Buddhist view. You won't have that view. The only reason, you know, as a secular person, that you decide not to kill is because you just know you know it's not nice to kill people, and you have compassion. That's okay, but it's not complete. It's still okay. It's good enough. It's pretty powerful. That's secular ethics. But it's very rare in secular ethics that we talk about harming ourselves and realizing that everything we think and do and say programs us. That's usually not what we think about. We just have a good sense, you know, of like, yeah, do you understand my point? That's still a good view, but the Buddhists would suggest that it's not enough, that's all. Because having compassion is pretty powerful. That can counteract all sorts of things. Are we communicating or not? I mean, it's a good point.
Yeah. I think I have to think about that some more. I mean, it's just. But
what's the point? Say some more.
I think the point is that, or I think what I heard you say is that if I hold this whole framework, I mean, it's almost like the background of the whole point of the opponent powers. This is a presentation. Never mind.
No, not never mind. It's an important point. Follow it through.
Okay, well, I'm thinking that what the thing you said initially in response to my question at the beginning here, a minute ago, was it didn't involve compassion for yourself. So,
sorry, no, what? Sorry, what? Which one?
Okay, it did. What I know, I'm going to explain how this comes up. So I noticed that I really regret if I kill something, mistakenly kill something, or use harsh words. Okay, I feel the regret.
No, stop right there. What is regret? What's this regret you feel? Analyze. Spell it out for me. Divine it.
Okay.
What is this regret you feel?
I can see that it has a painful effect on the victim of my.
Okay, that's compassion. You missed out the first one. That's my point. You don't have regret at all. You got compassion. You haven't got regret for yourself. That's the point about regret. It's the harm it does to you.
Thank you. Okay, that's it. Thank you. I got it.
That's one we skip over. That's so common. We do not have the view that what I think and I do makes me. We only think in terms of the external result. Even good people, we don't have the view that everything I think and do and say produces the person I become. We just don't have that view. So we don't have compassion for ourselves. We don't understand that we're creating ourselves every second. So that's why the karmic one is so powerful. You've got to be sick of the suffering yourself of that action of killing, because you don't want to get killed. You don't want to have the habit to kill. You don't want to get sick. You don't have a lousy environment. That's the point. No? We communicating or not?
Yeah.
Then your compassion is grounded in something reasonable, because you know that they're in the same boat as you. And that's why you can have compassion for the people who harm you, because they're harming themselves, just like you're doing. That was the Buddha's view, if I was fundamental, is that we are the creators of ourselves. And that means everything we think and do and say produces the person we become. So we've got to be conscious of that process first. And we are sick to death of producing a stupid, idiot, unhappy, demented, neurotic, depressed, angry person who gets harmed and shat upon. We're fed to the teeth with that, so we're going to purify the bloody causes by having compassion for ourselves. That's regret. Are we communicating? Huh? Kavita? Thank you. Any other questions?
Venerable, it's Lisa in Las Vegas. I have a question.
Good, Lisa. Good, darling. Talk to me.
Okay, it's in regards to bad mouthing. So once again,
Yes.
manager of a hospital, I say I get a patient complaint, and then I have to then find out what's going on about the nurse or about another staff member, and it might be founded or not. And then I've also fired people with my role as well. So of course, I'm trying to be compassionate. I don't want to fire people, but sometimes I don't have much of a choice. So in this purification process, I mean, I can't resolve to not ever fire anybody again or write them up or have to investigate their actions. So is this appropriate to do or not?
That, you see, that's the point. The action, this is where the whole point about motivation comes in, Lisa. We can see very well that we put killing, firing somebody in one category, that's a mean action because you're harming a person, and we put hiring somebody as a generous action. We can think of that pretty simply in conventional terms. But we can also see that if, you know, I can be generous with a wicked motivation because you're rich and you're fat and I want your money. I can still be generous, which is a virtuous action, but my motivation stinks. So I pollute that action and it becomes negative. Equally, we can do what's called a negative action, but you can do it with pure motivation, pure compassion for that person's sake. You know that they've created the karma to have this happen, but you don't have any wish to harm them, but you're like tough love, like a firm mummy. I'm really sorry you have to leave. But your motivation can be pure. Can it not? Because you'll pollute yourself if you have anger. So you don't want to pollute yourself, but you have to do it because you're in this job and it involves firing people because they've done something wrong. So it's being a tough mother, but it's got to be a pure motivation. Otherwise you mess yourself up as well. That's the point.
Now, I'm coming at it with that motivation, but yeah, so then because of the motivation is pure, I wouldn't need to purify an action like firing at the end of the day.
It's a good point. I think it's still necessary to do that.
Okay.
Because you're developing the habit. If you're the person who goes and fires everybody, that's a very strong habit to put in your mind. So you don't want to do that in the future. So you should definitely say, regret any harm you've done to others because you don't want to harm others, even with a good motivation. I'd rather not have to harm anybody. I don't want to have to do that again. To have a sincere wish. You can't say to yourself, I'll never fire again, but you want to not have to do actions that are, because it's playing with fire in a way. You're not a great saint yet, you know, so you'd be very cautious and you really want to not do, and then maybe and that might end up suddenly getting another job that's a higher job up. It doesn't require hiring anybody or firing anybody, which means you're out of the firing line. So you just not want to continue those things, be on the safe side. But at the same time, not lie to yourself. You understand my point? Do you understand my point? You're very wise. You're very, very wise with it.
That's been helpful. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So anyone else? Huh? Nothing. Okay. So, okay, well then, what time is it? 22. Time to go, Mimi. So any questions about anything now? So a good time to have questions about anything.
Venerable Rabina, it's Brian here in
Yes.
San Antonio. I think I know the answer to this, and
Go on.
probably addressed it, but it's just something I struggle with a lot, which is, again, it's that feeling. For example, Lama Sopa, I'll read his advice often about purification, and he'll say, recite this sutra 200,000 times, do this 400,000 times, and Pabonka Rinpoche, says reciting the long mantra 27 times is enough to just keep it from multiplying, and it just seems so overwhelming, and I can barely, I'll get 7 out in a day at the end of the day, and just I'm tired or whatever, and so I'm just constantly feeling like there's a dam about to burst and there's leaks everywhere, and I'm just running around plugging the hole. It's never enough.
Brian, don't feel like that. You mustn't feel that way. That's just, you mustn't feel like that. No, you mustn't feel that way. I mean, it's like Kavita's question. We've got to do what we can do according to our capacity. I mean, this is the point, because Lama Zopa is so fanatic, so outrageous, and so highly evolved. The man doesn't sleep. He practices day and night, So if you start comparing yourself with him, because he says 200,000 this, I mean, it's too outrageous what he does. It's outrageous. You'll die of misery if you try and compare, but you do your best you can. He leads us in a very outrageous. I remember one guy who came to visit him, had never been to any Dharma before, went to the November course in Courtin. He went up there and saw Rinpoche. Rinpoche gave him his life practice. He had no idea about anything. And someone looked at the thing he had to do, which is a certain number of nyungnes, which take 3 days, right? And then somebody calculated that would take him 4.5 lifetimes if he started now. So what do you do with that? You just do your best. You aim for it, I mean, you die otherwise, 4.5 lifetimes, never stopping this second, unceasing nyungnes for 4.5 lifetimes. It's like hilarious. That's who he is. We aim for the best. What can we do? So you try to do it with a good heart, with a happy mind, delighting in do any at all. Because the key point is also the 4 steps. You can't just doing the 3rd one is not enough. You got to do it because they each purify a particular way karma ripens. So even you're sitting in your chair, relaxed, you just do it in 5 seconds. You can deeply regret the rubbish because you're sick of suffering. You can deeply have compassion and have refuge. You can say a few mantras quickly, and you can vow to change. And in 1 minute, you can have powerful with your heart involved in it.
Beautiful.
Come on, Ryan.
Thank
be
you.
authentic and be sincere, and do the best you can. And if you're going to go to sleep, we'll do it earlier. We're all the same there. We live to the last minute. After our 7 hours of videos, and we rush off and do our 7 hours of video games, and we get all holy and do it. Wonder why we go to sleep after 5 minutes at 1 in the morning. Right. Do the practice before your video games. Do the practice before you watch porn. I mean, I'm exaggerating. You get my point.
I got you. Loud and clear. Thank you.
You've got to be grown up about it. What else, folks? So listen, just go back to Rebecca's point. I haven't studied all the Vinaya enough, and so I remember vaguely hearing about this kind of thing in the past, and this is from the studying of the Vinaya, which you learn it well. And I don't know, I haven't studied, so I cannot say. There's got to be something in that, Rebecca. So you just got to look into it. But I haven't studied the Vinaya deeply enough. I just don't know. Do you understand, Rebecca? There has to be something there. I remember vaguely now hearing something like that, but I haven't studied it, so I cannot say. So all I can tell you is quoting what I know based on what I've understood without saying what you've heard is wrong. I can't possibly say that. Because it is something about the Pratimoksha vows that are very precise and very limited, very, very precise, Because certainly the Bodhisattva vows, as you know, if you say that Bodhisattva vow prayer, it purifies broken vows and it strengthens kept vows. And finally, but I don't understand the nuance of the teachings because I haven't studied it. So you need to look into that to get the right answers. Okay.
Yes, Venerable. It may have been for this lifetime as well, not next life.
Even that I don't know about. No, that could very well, because Bodhisattva vows go from life to life, but I don't think the moksha vows do. They don't. That I remember hearing, but I haven't studied it enough, so I cannot say.
Okay, thank you.
All right, darling. So what else, folks? People, anything else you want to ask me? Any old thing? Hello, Jason and Amy. You must be up already. Yeah, that's right. It's daytime for you, isn't it? Oh, early. My God, you got up. These guys came up early. Look, Jason and Amy have been up since about 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning. Were you? Were you here this morning? Jason and Amy? Talk.
No, Venerable Robina, we only got up for the second session. Yeah.
4 in the morning. Well done. I'm very They're in Melbourne. Well done. Good.
up at 2 in the morning.
Yes, 7 in the morning in Melbourne, 7:15. So any questions? Any more questions, folks? Any more questions? We'll talk more about tomorrow. We'll do the practice tomorrow as well. Any more questions, sweethearts? No?
Actually,
Go, Lynn, yes. What's your question, darling?
Sorry. So I'm having this difficulty in grasping like the vows, 2 of the vows, one of which is I will not kill, and then the other one is I will not lie. And you know, to use your example, or to the reality is that even us breathing, we're killing. So am I not?
The first step is intention. Lynn. The thing is intention. You break a vow if you intend.
Yes, and that's I guess
how can you break a vow? How can you don't even create the karma of not, you don't even have a negative action of karma if there's no intention. You have to have intention is the mind that decides I will kill. That has to be present, Lynn. That has to be present, Lynn.
Yeah.
Can you hear? No, wait. Can you hear that point?
The intention has to be present.
That's right.
But,
So but based on that, what's your question?
So then how do I distinguish, I guess, between knowledge that I will step on something and it will die?
That did you have, okay, Lynn, what does intention mean? As you understand that English word, what does it mean?
I have the desire to, that's what I'm.
No, not the desire, the bare bones thought, I will kill.
Okay, so premeditated, basically.
I will kill is the thought. That's the beginning of the creation of karma. I will. That's the beginning. That has to be there. And second, you have to know there's a sentient being there. You know it's a vow and you don't care and you don't want to fix it. That's how you break a vow of not killing.
And how about the vow of I will not lie?
Same thing, dear. Same thing. Obvious.
So
Same
I could say, okay, so as long as the intentions are there that I don't want to lie and I don't want to kill, and I'm breathing in and directly killing things.
Lynn, you're determined to find you're a bad girl. You're determined for me to tell you you're a wicked girl and you're killing all the time and you can't escape. Listen to the words and think about it, precious girl. Think about it. Think about it carefully.
I struggle. Thank you.
I know you join the universe, but think about it and read the teachings carefully and then be brave as you can to do our best to get out of this mess we're in. One step at a time, baby. And delight. The point about the vow is this, Lynn, 24 hours a day, you have a vow of not killing in your mind stream. And that's so itself is so beneficial. You're purifying your mind every second and you are creating lots of virtue. So be delighted with that.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing the last week.
Wonderful. Well done.
Thank you.
All right,
General Robina, it's Roxanne again.
Yes, Roxanne.
I have a question for you about vows. So I am in the Air Force, I'm in the military, and I also work in intelligence. So in the military, I may be in situations where I am going to kill people, possibly. Okay. And since I'm in intelligence, I may be in situations where I have to lie. So short of getting out of the military and completely quitting my career of intelligence, I don't see myself being able to make a vow to not kill or to make a vow to not lie because that, you know, unless I leave my career. So are you able to do informal vows to yourself, like with a time period, like I will not kill for the next 24 hours?
I understand. Okay, put it this way. In general, do you like the idea of not wanting to kill?
Yes, I mean, I don't want.
Okay, good. So you like the idea of not killing. So do you like the idea of programming your mind with the intention not to kill? Does that sound like a nice idea to you?
Yes.
So what you got to understand is, if you were to take refuge and were to take the vows, let's say, that vow sincerely meant would protect you from having to kill. That's the point about it. It's so dynamic. Karma's not set in stone. So by having a powerful vow not to kill, 24 hours a day you're keeping it, you're purifying a tendency to kill, and you're also purifying for you to ever even meet a situation in which you would be forced to kill. So it's protecting you from killing. Right. And if you did have to kill, if you did ever, not anticipating it, then you'd have this powerful wish to do whatever you can not to harm others, but you're trying to do it with it. You just do the best you can. But the point I'm really getting at is you sort of preempt that. You don't go, oh, well, it's sort of like saying, well, I'd better not ever drive a car because I might kill somebody. No, sorry, I better not drive a car because I might have a car accident. But if you make a decision, if you know that driving a car could include a car accident, but if you decide to drive with optimism and you'll never have an accident and you maintain your car perfectly, it's likely you won't have an accident. But you can play safe and say, well, I might not, what if I kill an ant? Well, I better not walk outside. You will do nothing. You will do nothing. So you have a strong intention and even keep the vow that could protect you from having to kill.
Okay. So, for example,
the other one is the one about your intelligence work. I mean, are you talking about actually lying, saying something that isn't true, or are you talking about not telling the complete truth?
A little bit of both. I mean, like, it's hard to get into, but I can't always be completely straightforward about things.
Not being straightforward doesn't mean lying. Lying includes speech and consciously intending to say something that is not true, to consciously mislead somebody. That's a lie. Mm-hmm. Not being vague, not saying something, that's not a lie. And again, all of this to really protect your own mind, given that's the nature of your job, you'd have to have the purest motivation every second to do whatever you do. But it doesn't follow that that's called a lie.
Well, like, what if I were captured by the enemy and they were interrogating me and they said, oh, tell us about this. Well, one of the techniques we're taught to do is to say, I don't know about that. Mm-hmm. But maybe I do. Right? You're supposed to say, oh, I don't know about that. I don't know anything about that.
So what it would be, so they're asking
you. That's like a lie, because maybe I do know about that thing.
I know. I think there's a way of speaking that's wise, that doesn't have to be an overt, intentional lie to harm somebody. Lies to harm somebody. So it can be very skillful, I'd say. But the real point of these vows is to kind of program us in developing virtuous behavior. That's the real point. And when difficult times come, if you've programmed your life all your life not to kill, lie, steal, when a time comes when you've got to do something, you'll be skillful, you'll be wise. You understand, darling?
That makes sense. So it's still a beneficial thing to take the vow.
Oh my God, incredible. Every second you've got it. Every second you've got it. You're creating, it's like putting atomic bombs under the tendency to kill, and it purifies your mind hugely. It's marvelous, I'd say.
That makes sense. That makes me feel a lot better. Thank you.
And then, of course, you can eventually go and take the bodhisattva vows, which are much more powerful and much more pervasive and much more huge. And they're vows to help you benefit others. And there's more space in there where if you really are based upon pure motivation, you would lie to benefit somebody. You would. It's okay to lie to benefit someone. So the lay vows are the ground ones, and then you've got the bodhisattva vows, and then you have the more advanced ones. So it's like this is structure, you know. And all of it is first one is not to harm, and the next one is to benefit others. So it's like different levels of it.
That makes sense.
Thank you so much. Well, I think we can finish now, don't you think?
Venerable.
Yes.
Really quick. What was the technical name of you? I don't know if they were vows or guidelines, whatever, but the technical name for it was like the 3 of the body, 4 of the speech. What was that?
Okay, those level. That's the very first sort of like, as soon as you start to read about Buddhism and you think, well, what does Buddha advise? The first thing he would advise as a suggestion, it's not vows or commitments, is a decision to at least not harm sentient beings with your body and speech, and to begin to work on your mind. So he refers to them as the 10 non-virtues.
10 non-virtues, got
3 of the body, 4 of the speech, and 3 of the mind. It's like a broad kind of set of instructions that Buddha would suggest if you want to become a better person, abide by these.
Got it. Thanks.
You understand? because that's the point of them. They're methods to help you become a better person.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember the name. The name of the packaging.
Sorry, just to follow on from that, is it what? So would this be something that one would want to purify with the Vajrasattva practice, for example? Say, for example, you're having a chat with a friend, so that's idle speech. Should you think about perhaps purifying that as well?
That's right. That's why, as Lama Zopa puts it, Laura, that it's a practice we should do at the end. You finish your day with it. It's like you're going to clean up your act at the end of the day. You're going to clean up your garden, do a bit of weeding, do a bit of regretting, and then as Lama says, you go to bed with a happy mind. It's really intelligent to do that. It's a great way to end the day, and it's also because it's a practice that's really you talking to yourself, and it's very healing practice to do it nicely before you go to bed, and then it's very powerful. Yes, absolutely, darling. That's exactly right. All right. So shall we end, Christopher and Kavita? Time to go home? It is. All right.
We're good with that. Would you like us to share the dedication prayers?
Yeah, why don't we do that? We'll finish with our little bookends, and we start the day and we finish the day with these little aspirations, okay? So these little aspirations here, that one's called a dedication prayer, and you'll see the words, and I'll explain them. We can just do it together if you like, or you can just listen as you wish.
You want to get it on there?
Yeah.
Tomorrow at 11 in San Antonio. Yeah, that's right, Joanne. Tomorrow at 11 in San Antonio. That's right. 2 o'clock in the morning for Melbourne and 9 o'clock in the morning for me. Okay, so what we're doing here is go down the bottom there, just scroll up, would you?
That's the whole page.
I can't.
Bottom doesn't show.
Hold on, I'm working on it. Just give me
Okay,
a second.
there we go. Okay, there we go. So the last two, now it's gone again.
Can you scroll up?
I'm trying.
There you go. Here.
Thank you. That's what I was.
There we go. That's it. So these, this only, okay. So what all we're saying in these two little prayers, the first one is just saying, given that we've been here for these 4 or 5 hours together today, as many moments as there have been, as many seeds we have planted, how marvelous. And we're going to nourish these seeds from this moment forward with our effort, with our practice, according to our capability, so that they do manifest eventually in the development of our amazing potential, so that then we really are able to be benefit sentient beings. And the second one is just make this aspiration, this compassion, this amazing bodhicitta, this amazing attitude of wanting to benefit others. May it grow and grow in the hearts of all. We'll just sing in Tibetan. Kewadinyo dudan lama sangye drugyune droma chikyang malupa Dei sala gopasho Jang chob sem chogrin poche ma ke panam ke gyochig ke panyam pa me payam gong ne gong du elvasho. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, and all your wonderful questions, everybody. Marvelous. And if you don't die tonight, we'll see you tomorrow. Okay. If you do die tonight, die with a happy mind.
Thank you.
Education practice, okay?
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Hopefully see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Everybody have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, everybody.
Marianne was on there.
Marianne, Georgia, I see you. All right, here we go. Ending for everyone.
Over and
May the
out.
force be with y'all. Oh, wait, I need to stop the YouTube stream first.
Oh, yeah.